back in the late 70s, early 80s, I made a series about the history of life on Earth. And one of the key moments in the history of life on Earth is a moment when fish with backbones but no jaws, but heavily plated fish with armor plating, evolved into two other kinds of fish, one with lobe fins, which became our ancestors, and one which became other simpler fins, which became teleost fishes, which inhabit the ocean today. And the key place where the evidence for that was in the middle of Australia, and it was found by people from the Natural History Museum down the road. And it's on a strange, central Australia, a huge cattle station called Gogo. So when I went down there to film doing this program, I said to the Australians, we would like to go to Gogo. And he said, why do you want to go to Gogo? And I said, well, it's the great place where all these fossil fish were found. He said, yes. He said, yeah, you Poms come over, you take the easy stuff, and you take it back to your museum and you give it fancy names. But you've done that, and now we've had to go in and do a proper job, and I can assure you there's nothing there. So I said, well, that's very kind, but I would like to show the site to see just where these boulders were, and which contained these fossil fish, and where the reefs were. And after a lot of negotiation, it was agreed that we could get a helicopter and go to Gogo Station. And the Australian expert who was responsible for giving us permission came with us. And I stepped out of the helicopter onto this, we landed in there, and I put my foot on a boulder. And on the boulder, there was a rectangular scute. These were armored fish. And on the top, you can see these bony plates, which give them their armor. And on the top, there's a rectangular one. And I looked at this, and I said to the Australian, I said, what is that? And he said, you bastard. But he was decent enough to let me keep it. So the next part of the story becomes, after that account, becomes a little more exciting, because only a few years ago, I got a letter from an Australian paleontologist called John Long, working in Victoria, and he had found reworked some of these Gogo specimens, and he had discovered something quite extraordinary. He discovered that one of them, there's the specimen on the top, he had discovered that extraordinarily, at this very early period in the history of life, these armored fish had stopped laying eggs, as everybody thought they would, and actually bore young. Not only that, but it had an umbilical cord. Remarkable, astonishing. This is 370 million years ago, that sort of thing. And at this very early period, the animals, the fish, the vertebrates, were live bearers. And this is what they think they looked like. Here you can see this strange fish, and you can see the baby just emerging, and alongside, trailing behind it, is the umbilical cord. Fantastic. And John Long was kind enough to write to me and say, we would like to call this Materpiscis, that is mother fish, Attenboroughi. I said, that's amazing. Thank you very much. And then I thought, of course, if you have internal fertilization, you must actually copulate. This is the first known example of any vertebrate copulating in the history of life, and he names it after me. So this has been a source of some concern to me.